What's up, everybody? John Hoover, Sooners on SI, along with Ryan Chapman. We're at the Cotton Bowl. We're wrapping this thing up. Y'all saw the game, 34-3. Texas wins again in his 3 games. Brent Venables is 1-2. His teams have been outscored 113-37. You got the question in the press box, in the post-game press conference. Is it alarming to you that your teams are so far apart? Texas is here and you're here. And I don't think he liked the question. I don't think he wanted to answer the question. He skipped over the question. I asked him specifically off the top, hey, you did some good things on offense early on. Brent, did they take it away from you, or did you guys go away from it? He said it's just football. It happens. They do some things. They took it away. Had to do some other things. I don't think Brent had any answers for 34-3, Ryan. The first SEC game in the history of this series, and that's what it looked like.
It's 2 out of 3 years that Brent Venables has had no answers. Now, 2 years ago, it made a lot more sense, right? Dylan Gabriel not there, you weren't going to win the game. There's no excuse for losing 49-0, though. That was something Oklahoma lived with all year, right? Everything through the offseason. If you don't think that that's a big deal, Oklahoma thought it was a big deal. Everything was 49 reps of everything, right? Today, Brent Venables, and this is a common theme, for 6 games, he has no answers for his offense.
Right.
It's one of the worst units in college football, statistically, visually. Everything looks so difficult, and you saw it. Even the scripted plays, right? Seth Littrell had wrinkles. He had some more option stuff, some stuff that should have been tailored to Michael Hawkins. And Oklahoma got, 18 yards on the first possession that ended in a missed field goal. They went backwards 12 yards on the second possession when they got the ball on their own 49. Then 2 more false starts on the punt. They finally got that field goal drive, and that was the end of it. From the second quarter on, felt like Texas figured out some of the motion stuff. It felt like Javonte Barnes was running into walls of white shirts, and it felt like Michael Hawkins had no faith in his offensive line, which led to no ability to throw down the field because he was running into the rush. It looked like it looked back to, from the second quarter on, did this team practice this week, which is where they were through 4 weeks and some change.
I wrote on the blog, on the live blog, it looked a lot like 49-0 from 2 years ago, where they had no answers. The quarterback would drop back to pass, and he was frozen. No fault of Michael Hawkins. I thought he played admirably, especially for a young guy. But too often he was made to drop back without any actual receivers open. Again, first 5 receivers on the depth chart, all gone. We knew that coming in. This was no surprise. They should have practiced something that would allow for them to make up for that. However, like Ryan said, the game started out great for Oklahoma. They got the interception on the third play of the first series. Picked off Quinn Ewers again. I think we've all predicted that was going to happen. Billy Bowman gets the diving pick. Good for him. Offense goes nowhere. They have to kick a field goal. Brent was a little slow with the decision. Should I go for it here? Should I run the field goal? Should I go for it? By the time the field goal unit got on, the clock was ticking down. Josh Plaster, the holder's doing this. Going, let's go. He hurried through his routine, missed the field goal, 44-yarder, very makeable. I watched him make 4 50-plus yarders, 56 and beyond in the pregame. So that's not out of his range. The wind is not swirling down here. It was a perfect day for field goals. What happens? Oklahoma's defense comes out next time, 3 and out again, pick up a first down, and then, like Ryan said, they go backwards, punt it away. Defense turns in another 3 and out. How long can the defense be expected to hold up against Texas, the number 1 team in the country? Fantastic offense, great play caller. Legitimately, seriously, how long can Oklahoma be expected to play that good a defense for that long?
Look, Oklahoma's been on the right side of this rivalry for nearly 2.5 decades, and anyone that's filtered into that end of the Cotton Bowl has watched it not often, but a couple of times. What's the recipe for an underdog Texas team coming against an Oklahoma team? You get a turnover early, you have to cash in. Oklahoma held Texas to 15 yards of total offense in the first quarter.
First 3 drives, 9 plays, 8 yards, 0 first downs.
The first quarter ended 3-0. That is not how you upset a team that you're a double-digit underdog against. And I think that you saw it. What really got Texas going was not the big pass down this sideline that we're standing on. It was the fact that Oklahoma, much like in the Auburn game, the second series, what sprung that series, it was missed tackles. The difference is Hugh Freeze is not on this sideline. Steve Sarkisian's actually a good football coach. And so there was no goal line stand, none of that stuff. Texas finishes off. Once it got to 7-3, Zach Galli answered these questions admirably in the postgame, but Brent Venables talked about the guys were not fitting the run. They were trying to not do their 111. Why is that happening? Because once it got to 7-3, the defense did not believe the offense was going to score. And they were right. The offense did not score. They felt like they had to make that play. They were getting out of their gaps, missing tackles, taking bad angles. Then suddenly, that's where Texas offense got it going. Even before the 2 fumbles in the final 2 minutes of the first, at 14-3, I turned to you and said, "Well, this thing's over. We can start riding," because Oklahoma's offense is that awful. And I think the defense, it has finally spilled over, and they're playing like that, which is not a good thing because they're trying to do too much, which is how these gaps are forming in the defense now.
They were pressing on that play. Okay, so Texas takes it down 10 plays, 75 yards. It goes from 3-0 for the entire first quarter to all of a sudden it's 7-3 like that. You've missed 2 field goals. You've left some plays on the field, obviously. You've had great field position a couple of times. Turned out nothing from that. And then, like Ryan said, they get pinned kind of down there, and 4 plays, 84 yards, coming off the goal line essentially. Missed tackle on the receiver. I think 4 missed tackles on Ryan Wingo's, short, 3rd and short across the middle.
And it started with Trace Ford stepping up and blitzing. Makari Vickers was supposed to be impressed behind that. Makari Vickers was not impressed. He released Wingo, which meant that Wingo was able to run all the way across the formation. It was Woody Washington who finally had to run him down, and Woody's a lot of things. We know that Woody's not like the fastest, so if he's the one running you down, you've overrun a lot of defenders.
Yeah, and they turned that drive again. 4 plays, 84 yards. They fumble going into the end zone. The back, Trey Wisner's running into the end zone. He's about to cross the goal line. Robert Spears Jennings, RJ, we call him, reaches across, knocks the ball out. Ball trickles through the end zone. It looks like it might get kicked out of bounds. It looks like it might be a touchback for Oklahoma. Instead, their receiver is sprinting down the field in an all-out effort. He sees the football, pounces on the football for a touchdown. It's 14-3, and the game was over like that.
Yeah, I mean, those are the breaks. That's Red River Rivalry, the madness that happens. If that goes out the back of the end zone, or if Danny Stutzman's able to fall on it, and Danny Stutzman just got outrun. I don't think that Stutzman was loafing, but he just got flat out outrun. That's the weirdness that happens, and instead, the better team created their own luck. That's something that Brent Venables talked about, and that's something Zach Alley talked about, is that you create your own breaks in a game like this. And Texas was clearly in another league, and that's now 2 of the last 3 years. Oklahoma's offense has not crossed the goal line. That is something Brent Venables cannot live with. It's the same stuff that
2 different quarterbacks, 2 different coordinators.
It's the same stuff that people got mad at me for asking Porter Moser, right? You're 0-6 against Texas. You're 1-5 against Oklahoma State. Those games matter. Brent Venables is now 1-2 against Texas, and as good as last year's was, these 2 losses are as bad as I've seen it in literally my lifetime.
That's right. No, they're both blowouts, completely one-sided wipeout blowouts. You didn't have a plan beyond what we saw out here. Nothing. Did Brent Venables consider running Jackson Arnold out there? I was going to raise my hand, get that question out. Thankfully, Kevin Sherrington from the Dallas Morning News said, "Brent, did you ever think about changing quarterbacks?" And he said simply no. The question to Steve Sarkisian at some point late in his press conference, he said 2 years ago, they win this game 49-0. He said to us that felt like the Super Bowl. And then you saw what happened the rest of that season. Texas was not 49-0 better than Oklahoma. I don't know. Texas just kind of faltered down the stretch of 2022. They come back in 2023. They win the Big 12. They lose the Red River game, but they win the Big 12, go to the College Football Playoff. Steve Sarkisian said, "Our team knows now that this is not the Super Bowl. We don't put everything we have on the emphasis of this game." That's one way to say it, but I don't think Oklahoma does either. This is an SEC game. I asked guys if this was the most physical game they've played. Billy Bowman said it in the press conference. Dominic Williams said it in his interview afterwards. We gave them the game. Guys are coming out of this game thinking that Oklahoma should have won. We gave them the game is what 2 guys said tonight, and that shocks me.
I think that the defense believes that a lot of Texas's success came from things that they didn't do. Oklahoma's offense is such an embarrassing unit right now that hey, Hugh Freeze, this game plays 10 times, Texas is winning this game 10 times. That is the distance between these 2 programs. And I know that Steve Sarkisian is 1 year ahead of Brent Venables in the development cycle, as far as he's on his 4th year at Texas, same coaching staff, all that stuff.
Doesn't look like it's 1 year.
I was about to say, it does not look like it's 1 year of distance. And I know that Brent Venables doesn't like the question. That's why he's not answering the question. Barry Trammell asked him it on Tuesday in the midweek press conferences. When Texas is good, what does that do for you? Brent was kind of like, it doesn't really matter. We do our thing, which is fine. You look internally. This is the measuring stick.
It is.
And these rivalry games are the measuring stick. Why do Oklahoma State fans get so mad at Mike Gundy? Because for a long time, he didn't win the big one. It didn't matter if you won a Big 12 championship if you don't beat Oklahoma. this is what that is. Oklahoma doesn't beat Texas. Oklahoma's been not competitive. There have been, what would you say, 7 quarters between 2022 and 2024 where the Oklahoma fans on that half the Cotton Bowl sat in their seats, and the ones that were there were just there to the end of the game with no hope that anything was going to happen.
Yeah.
That is the kind of stuff that gets you in trouble quickly in a place like Oklahoma.
Yeah, especially when we saw in 2018 the defense was so bad, Lincoln Riley fired his defensive coordinator the next day. This series does that. This series with Texas tends to, if you struggle mightily, if you don't have answers. I mean, I understand there's one thing, there's one element of this, and that's Oklahoma doesn't have its top 5 receivers. I'm sorry, but it's hard to hold the offensive coordinator completely accountable when the offensive line has been in flux and the receivers are bad and the receivers are young. And we're halfway through the season now. They should have a plan, and they have known for weeks that those 5 guys, are not going to play in this game.
Well, and there's also 2 different times in, not to kill a true freshman. This is the freshman growing pains, which is not. This is not a burn it down with Michael Hawkins. But I understand that their top 5 receivers are out. But the second drive of the second quarter, Zion Reagans was open not once but twice on the same exact play that turned into a sack, I believe. The next drive, Brennan Thompson was wide open downfield. I know that they don't have the playmakers. You're not building your offense around these guys like you would around Deion Burks. Guys are open sometimes, and at some point you've got to, when the protection's there, trust it, get the ball. That's where the coaching has to. I understand if this offense isn't putting up 600 yards, but you have to make what's there, and they're not creating any of that. Everything's difficult, and now let me ask you this, Hoove. 6 games through the season, halfway through the regular season, what is Oklahoma's identity on offense?
Yeah.
What is it, other than they're bad?
I can tell you what Brent Venables said when he got the question, what's this, what do you hang your hat on offense? What was his answer? We got some good plays here and there. There is nothing to hang their hat on. There is literally nothing for this offense to hang their hat on right now. They tried with Michael Hawkins, and as dynamic and exciting a player as he is a true freshman who, when he drops back to pass, it's hard to paint a picture of this. You drop back to pass, you've got all these big dudes rushing around you, right? If you're watching on the video right now, you got this going on, all this chaos in your face. What happens? You're supposed to know exactly where that receiver is, and you're supposed to trust that he's open, and you're supposed to get the ball to him on time. That's not how it works for a freshman who's never done this before. Like Brent said in the middle of midweek at the press conference, he's never been there, never done that, and I can't discount that. I think that showed today.
Against Auburn, I thought he was 10 of 15, right? And I thought he made good decisions with the football. He was pretty conservative, but he tried to take a couple of shots. He obviously connected with J.J. Hesser. He threw another one, deep ball to Brennan Thompson, didn't hit, but he tried. Today, I thought he looked phased. I thought he looked flapped, all the things. I thought he looked rattled early, and that's where – now, the good news is the difference between what rattled looked like in the Tennessee game was turnovers. What rattled looked like for Hawkins was running into Colin Simmons and running into Anthony Hill and running into the pass rush. He had the turnover, he had the fumble, but it wasn't a constant, oh my gosh, that should have been an interception. So there wasn't that, but there's a lot that they still have to do, and they're 6 games in, and one of the bye weeks is already in the past, and this looked worse than it did 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Who's next? South Carolina?
South Carolina.
Coming to Norman, Oklahoma next week, October 19th, Saturday. We'll know that kickoff time tonight, right?
It's 11 or 11:45.
Is it already a morning?
It's windowed into the 11 or noon, basically.
Yep. So it'll be an early start in Norman next week for South Carolina. Hey, it's another SEC game. Look at that. What do you know? That's the way this thing works, folks.
A South Carolina team that pushed Alabama and
nearly took them down.
Had it not been for maybe the worst game-winning drive by Lenora Sellers, maybe there were some opportunities there for South Carolina to beat Alabama.
Yeah, real quick, Hawkins' numbers, you guys might be curious. Ran for 61 yards on 20 carries, also lost 34 yards, was sacked a whole bunch of times, 5 times. I think Texas finished with tackles for loss, something like 13 or something like that. It was bad. It was ugly. They were behind the line of scrimmage a lot.
11 tackles for loss.
11 tackles for loss for Texas. Also, Michael Hawkins, 19 of 30, throwing the football. So certainly not a disaster, but 148 yards means that 6 games now, Oklahoma has not had a 200-yard passer. They've not had a 100-yard rusher, and they've not had a 100-yard receiver. And you know what, Ryan? Frankly, I don't see a prospect where that's going to change.
No, and the closest they got was Jack Starnold rushed for 116 yards raw. whatever it is. Before
net,
net, it was 97 against
gains.
He gained 116 yards, but it was net 97 after he was going to be over 100 had it not been for basically him running around and falling down to kill the game off against Tulane. That's the closest they've gotten. It did feel like maybe they found a little bit running shocker. This is going to shock you, who Oklahoma ran to the perimeter and found some space and then went away from it.
We checked the SEC rule book. They said there's nothing against running to the corner, handing off the running back and running an outside zone play to the corners. And guess what? It worked. And I don't know why Oklahoma had to get away from it.
Well, they went away from it because they got behind and they knew that they weren't going to run down the. They weren't going to. Yeah. This team's not going to string together an 8-play drive and move down the. It just wasn't going to happen. They knew that. That's why they went away from it. It was like me playing NCAA college football. I throw one interception. I was like.
Oklahoma Sooners on SI is where you're going to find all of our content today, tomorrow, all next week. We're going to have player interviews. The post-game press conference is already posted on my YouTube channel, John Hoover Media. Go check that out. But look for player interviews. Coordinators will be talking. We'll have some more content tonight, tomorrow, all next week. Some hard questions got to be answered next week. It's the best way I can say it.
Simple as that. We'll figure it out. Not a lot said by Seth Luttrell in the postgame. He defaults a lot to I got to look at the film and see. Yeah. And then he puts the blame on himself first. I'll be interested to see come Tuesday. Brent Venables, after the Tennessee game, I thought had a pretty, as transparent as you'll see from a coach, a pretty transparent, energetic press conference ahead of that Auburn game. Mm-hmm. Interested to see what his vibe is on Tuesday, as Oklahoma season's basically done. They're not going to make the college football playoff. Not just, like, if they went out, sure, this team's not winning out, obviously. Like, right. Use your eyes. Like, one of those things. So it'll be interesting to see how they rally, and it becomes almost a weird put the Band-Aid on it, stop the bleeding, and what kind of development can you get for 2025?
Yeah. Can you get to 8 wins? Can you get to 7 wins? Can you get to 6 wins?
Keep us out of Orlando. Can you do that?
Yeah, by going to 5 wins. Nobody wants that. Anyway, Oklahoma Sooners on SI is where you're going to find the rest of our content. For Ryan, I'm John Hoover. We'll see you guys next time.